Hello. Thank you so much, Sabrina and Arden, and everyone who's tuning in today. It is a beautiful day to come and be supported and surrounded by incredible human beings as we all move forward towards creating our most optimal lives. My name is Dana Shalit, and I am a Femme Power published author, soon to be published author on Tuesday, actually. My book, Pathways to Self, The Path to Purpose Through the 9 Steps of Self-Realization, is coming out this Tuesday. What a wild ride it's been to get to this point. It's been in the process for about 4 years. And I am a completely different person that I am now than I was when I first even started talking to Sabrina about publishing this book. And so let me just see here. I think my there we go. My video is being weird. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about my journey and about the path to purpose, because when I thought about today's conversation and what I really wanted, others to take away from it is that, each one of us can step a little bit closer to our authentic purpose, to living our most optimal lives, to navigating this earth school with as much grace as we can possibly navigate. And so the way I would describe myself is I would say I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I have done a whole bunch of different things in the last 20 years, but they are all based in entrepreneurship. I actually come from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents, although immigrants, were entrepreneurs in Canada when we arrived in Canada when I was 9. And my brothers are both entrepreneurs and have had multiple businesses. So I think it's safe to say that it runs in my blood. And I did start my career in my very early 20s as an event producer. And I really thought that it was going to be my purpose. I always had a passion for philanthropy and giving back. And I believed that I could do that by producing large scale charitable fundraisers. And I used to joke that on Instagram, if it existed back then, it would have looked amazing. It was super glamorous, the who's who of Canadian socialites and fashion shows and charity galas and outfits and photographers and all the ABC listers, the whole thing. And I did that for almost a decade. And I really thought that that was going to be my path towards giving back, towards being a philanthropist, which was really what I always wanted to do. And I remember listening to Louis, was it Louise Hay? No, it was Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks said something that stuck with me for a really long time. They said, they questioned, have you ever met a broke philanthropist, is what they said. And it just sort of got me. Not that I wasn't, super successful financially. I was doing really well, but I realized that there was no extra, that I didn't have extra time. I didn't have extra finances. And the path towards giving back wasn't going to be through 100-hour work weeks and the hustle. So at that point in my life, I started to think there must be something else out there for me. So if that resonates, if you are feeling in your heart, there must be something else out there for me, then this is for you. This is what the book was all about. I had a lot of different pivots since then. Soon after, I'll speak about this more in detail shortly, but I went into the network marketing industry and I struggled for the first few years, but then I found some tremendous success. I ended up reaching the top 1% and traveling the world and speaking on stages in front of thousands of people. And still, even still, when I, got everything I wanted on paper, there was still, again, that moment of there must be something else out there for me. And that's really, the second time that I started to question that, everything started to shift. And I went down a rabbit hole of personal development, a deep, dark night of this dark night of the soul. And I started to become a certification junkie. I was just consuming information and trainings where I became a clinical hypnotherapist and a past life regression therapist and somatic and trauma informed. And I was just sucking in all this information to learn more about myself so that I can get closer to my purpose. And that's probably the biggest misconception I've learned along the way is that, and the thing I wish I knew when I was younger, is that I thought that there was only one purpose and that we only have one purpose. But what I've learned now is that purpose is really an unfolding path. And today I want to walk you through the 9 steps towards that self-realization, towards that purpose. I'm going to walk through them a little bit briskly. Obviously, I wrote a full book about it, but I really wanted to sort of touch upon each one so that when Tuesday comes and the book is live on Amazon Global, you can have the choice for yourself to see if you want to learn more about that story, about those stories. So let me begin. So 9 steps to self-realizations. And the first step, like I think everybody would resonate with this, the first step is always self-awareness. And when I talk about self-awareness, it's a different moment for everybody. It's the moment we realize we are not the voice in our head, we are the one who is witnessing it. It's the moment where we stop identifying with the story about ourselves. It is the moment where we start to look at the world a little bit different. It's almost like that spark of awareness happens when you were one way and then you were another way. And for me, it was quite an unlikely spark. And I was in the midst of my event production career, again, working those 100-hour weeks, hustling hard, struggling from panic attacks and anxiety, and just thinking if I worked a little bit harder, then I would have a little more success, and then I would have everything I wanted. And I had a friend reach out to me, and she was a psychotherapist, and she asked me if I'd be willing or interested in receiving a past life regression. Now, I had no idea what she was talking about. I mean, zero clue. I had never heard of past lives. Like maybe in theory, I had never heard of hypnotherapy other than the idea of like a really hyper person in Frosh Week jumping up like a chicken up and down. That's what I knew about hypnosis. But one thing I had going for me is that I was a yes person. And so I said yes without even knowing what was going to happen at that session. And when I went in to meet with who I call Dr. Park in the book, we first went into a really deep meditative state together. And from there, she expanded my mind in ways I never knew possible. I saw things and learned things about myself and connected to the deep core of who I really was in a way that completely blew my mind. So when I came out of that session for that first time, I knew myself differently. And I wasn't the past lives I had seen, and I wasn't this version of me. I was the essence behind it. And there's a great kind of exercise I like to do that I'll invite you to do with me, just to sort of prove how we are not that voice in our head. We are the essence behind it. So you can close your eyes with me for a second and we can play this game where, I'm going to have you just close your eyes and just tune inwards. And I want you to say in your mind, I love you. Just whisper it. I love you, I love you, I love you. Just whisper it in your own mind. And now I want you to scream it in your own mind. I love you, I love you, I love you. Scream it. As loud as you can. Scream it at the top of your lungs. Scream, 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 I love you. And just notice what happens. Notice how you can turn the volume up or the volume down, that you can choose what is being said in the forefront of your mind, because you are not the words, you are not the thoughts, you are the essence behind it. And when I started to dive deep into hypnosis and the power of the mind, I learned a lot of fascinating things. I learned that, the 95% of our mind is actually the subconscious. And so we are operating most of our day from the 5% of our mind, that, reactive reptilian mind that is responsible for our habits and our limiting beliefs and the things that we just do automatically. And so what I learned is that we have over 55,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of those are repetitive. So again, we are not our mind, we are not our thoughts, we are absolutely the essence behind it. And I think that is what precedes change, because people change for multiple reasons. They change because they are hurt enough that they have to. They change, and this is a Jim Rohn quote, by the way, I believe. They change because they see enough that they're inspired to. They change because they learn enough so that they want to. Or they change because they receive enough that they are able to. And at that point of my life, I was hurting enough that I had to change. And then when I met with Dr. Park, I saw enough that I was inspired to. And then I moved into the learning. And now I'm in a state of life where I can say I have received enough that I am able to not only change my circumstance, but help other people do the same. So that was step one, was self-awareness. And I think most people that are listening to this on some level are already have experienced that spark of self-awareness and that desire to change, or you wouldn't be listening to these conversations in the first place. So that takes me to the second step, which is self-trust. And one thing I love to talk about when it comes to self-trust is my journey to getting to Costa Rica. So I live in Costa Rica now, in a beautiful little town on the North Pacific. And I got stuck here during the pandemic. And it's a cool story because never did I ever believe I was going to be living in Costa Rica, building a business here. I actually had no interest in going to Costa Rica. I am Canadian, as I mentioned, and so many people I knew ended up here, and I'm a bit of a rebel that way. And I was like, forget it. I'm never going. It's funny how we do that. And I was at that time, it was the pandemic had just started. And I was actually traveling across Canada with my charitable foundation, and we were interviewing Indigenous led organizations about the realities and the harsh truth that face Indigenous people in Canada in general. And it was a really hard trip. We had so many hurdles, and the topics we were covering were just so painstaking and really hit me at the core. And we traveled from Toronto and all the way we ended up in Whistler, and we found myself in the middle of the pandemic in a hotel with only 2% occupancy. And I was looking at my life. I was already over 10 years in network marketing, and I knew something had to change. And I was looking at my life thinking there had to be something different for me. And what is the next goal? And I can't do another year in my apartment in Toronto alone. So what's going to be the option? And I messaged my cousin who had a rental property in this little town. And I said, is your place free? And she said, it is. And 2 weeks later, me and a few friends landed in Costa Rica and took over their house. And 4 days after that, by the way, so I brought my dog, and 4 days after that, aviation rules changed all over the world. And I couldn't get my dog Lucy back to Canada. American Airlines stopped accepting dogs, and Canadian Airlines stopped flying to sunny destinations. I don't know if you recall that. And there was no way for me to get back from Costa Rica back to Toronto with my dog Lucy. And so I said I was going to wait it out. And that waiting lasted almost 2 years, where I couldn't actually leave this place. And by then I had proven to myself that I could do this, that I could live here, that this life that I saw as a one-day potential could actually unfold for me right now. But that level of trust of, saying yes before I was ready was really built much in advance of that. And I think that's what self-trust is about. It's really about listening to ourselves, listening to the signs all around us. I love, asking the universe for signs. I don't know if you guys are into that, but like if you pick one thing, you'll notice how it just starts showing up again and again and again. And it's about keeping our promises to ourselves. Self-trust is about doing the thing we said we were going to do, because so often we're so okay with disappointing ourselves, but we won't disappoint others. Now it's about really keeping our word to ourselves when no one else is watching. It's not a feeling that we wait for it to arrive. It's really about a being. It's about keeping our small promises to ourselves again and again and again, long before the big thing starts to happen. And it's about paying attention. This story will sort of move us into the next step, which is self-discipline. So I spoke a little bit about, entering the network marketing industry. And if you don't know what that is, it's essentially I was a brand ambassador and I sold a product, and I also coached and trained other brand ambassadors how to do the same thing. And again, as I mentioned, I jumped into that business because I was looking for more time, more finances, just more in my life. And everyone around me told me not to do it. I mean, when I told my dad that I wanted to jump into a network marketing business, he turned bright red and he was literally angry and he didn't want to talk about it. And for a year, I couldn't even tell him I was doing it. But I knew something had to change. And at that point in my life, I had to trust myself enough to do it anyway. And it was a really rough start. The thing about network marketing is that everybody starts in the same place. You all have the same tools, the same time, the same everything. You're there, all the information's there. It's up to you to learn and take action and build your influence and make it work ultimately. So the first couple of years I was really struggling, and I watched everyone around me being successful, and I was like, why not me? Like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And I found myself in a training with one of the top income earners in the country, in the company. And she said something really interesting. I actually raised my hand and I said, why is it not working for me? And she said, well, you got to get honest with yourself. Like, are you really giving it everything you've got? Like, consistently, like not constantly, but have you been consistent with your business for a prolonged period of time, like a marathon, not a sprint? Or have you been waiting for the business to prove to you that it's worth it for you to take action? And I was a little bit like taken aback, because if I really looked at it myself, like I had not done the do. I was waiting for the business to prove to me that it was possible before I actually did the thing I needed to do. And she said something really interesting. It's a little crude, but I'm going to share with you guys. She said, you're looking at the sidewalk, you're looking at a turd on the sidewalk through a straw. That is your vision right now. That's how small the vision is. You need to expand your awareness. And that is what, trust is also about, is about expanding your awareness, noticing what's not on your radar screen. If I told you right now not to look at anything red, don't look at anything red. Whatever you do, don't look at anything red. All you're going to see is what is red. So like and so that's just what happens. That's how our focus works, right? So our goal is to expand our awareness in self-trust and then move into self-disciplined habits. And the self-discipline that I cultivated during that business, while I was building that business, has completely transformed my life. But it's not from a place of doing the do constantly. It's about being consistent. And I'll talk a little bit more next about doing it while you're full versus out of the place of having to do it. But self-discipline changed my life. I started to, do the do, meaning the unglamorous stuff. So early mornings, gratitude lists, meditation, visualization, asking consistently, following up consistently, tracking my work, staying generous, keeping my why at the heart of everything that I was doing, being really supporting others in whatever it was that they wanted to get out of that business. And this is the thing about discipline, is that discipline is the thing that is as easy not to do as it is to do. And so it's really, sometimes I think we concentrate on the big picture, like I want a multi-million-dollar business, but we don't look at all the steps it takes to get there, the little things that need to be done when no one is watching. That's what self-discipline is about what you do when no one is watching. And that's really what I learned in the network marketing business. And it was important for me because as life continued to evolve, and I had lots of lows and lots of rejections and lots of failures on the path to where I am now, as life continued to evolve, those discipline habits of writing gratitude even when life is smacking me in the face, meditating even when my mind is so wild, just being in the practice of bringing it back to the present, being playful, doing the do even when I don't feel like doing it. It's really helped me with the gym, creating habits of going to the gym, really helped me with creating habits of when I'm in the unknown and not knowing what's happening next, trusting the process. That's what self-discipline is all about. Which leads me to the fourth step, which is selfishness. And this is an interesting one for me. I don't know if there's any empaths in this room. I'm anticipating there's going to be a lot of us in this room. We tend to be really ignited by the self-development industry. And So I, shared a little bit about going into that business and working it for a decade. And I love giving. I love being generous. I love being in that reciprocity with another human being. And I learned a lot about that later on in life. Like we actually have a brain circuit dedicated to generosity. So it makes sense for us to want to be generous. So the question becomes is why are we not generous? And I can speak from my own experience in times where I couldn't be generous was because I was so freaking empty. And that happened in network marketing because it was so easy to give, put myself last, say yes whenever somebody asked for a training for support, carry the load. At the beginning, I did it out of generosity, but eventually I realized that it actually wasn't generosity, it was self-sacrifice. And the body really does keep the score. And something, when I started to really reach those top levels and I was speaking on those stages, again, for the first time in my life, I realized I was really unhappy and I was insanely burned out. And the things that used to make me happy, like even those self-disciplined habits, became almost impossible to do. And so I really needed to get, straight with myself. And it's funny how that happens. The universe tends to reflect back to you the lessons that you need to learn. And I was crumbling. I was not showing up anymore. And I had no idea what was wrong with me. I actually had a conversation with one of my really good friends and I said, I don't know. And she was a business partner too. And I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I like can't get out of bed. I can't do the thing. And what she said to me, unfortunately, was you're being really selfish right now. And it broke me because there was no bigger wound that she could, impose, in my opinion. Being generous was something that I had become a part of my identity. And so with her saying that, it made me feel like she didn't see me. And now I know that the only thing that people can really wound you with are the thing you already believe yourself to be true, right? So if someone calls you a pink elephant, you're not going to be like, me a pink elephant because you're like, that's not even in my vocabulary. So how could that be offensive? But because I think there was a part of me that was already feeling like I was not doing enough, that I was being selfish, it was such a big wound. And so I started to move into the process of reclaiming selfishness. Because what I learned is that you can't, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can only pour from an overflowing cup. And so what I had done inadvertently was cut out all of my receiving. I was giving, and I was not receiving, not because people weren't trying to give to me, but some weren't because they were expecting, but there were likely people out there that would have loved to contribute to me. But all of my receiving channels were open. I mean, closed. So I had to reclaim receiving. I had to reclaim selfishness. I had to put myself first. And now I realize that it was setting me up for one of the most painful and most delicate times of my life, which I think we all have to a certain extent. And it was my version of the dark night of the soul. And I was already in that burnout. I was exploring selfishness. I was creating self-care menus, trying to slowly move out of that burnout. And stuff really started to hit the fan. I lost a few really close people to me in my life in a short period of time. In 3 months, my beloved grandmother, who I talk about a lot in my book, my nonna, and my uncle and my cousin, who was just a couple years older than me, they all passed away in a 3 month period. While I was sitting at the deathbed of my grandmother, I got a call from the CEO of the network marketing company I was a leader in, and they told me they were closing down an entire arm, which I was running at the head of, really, which was in another country, in Taiwan. And they were closing it down. I had hundreds of reps there, and it just completely broke my heart. But I was literally sitting, my grandma died 3 hours after those news. And it was the first time I had ever seen someone pass away. And so for anyone who has been through that, it is heart-wrenching and the most inspiring, experience to watch life transition. And unfortunately, I would say the friends that I had at that time who were so used to a version of me were just not used to the boundaries I was setting. They say that the only people who have issues with your boundaries are the people you need to have boundaries with in the first place. And this is no dig at them. I know the version of me that was operating then maybe wasn't so fair to them either, right? They were used to a leader who was giving, who was showing up, and I just couldn't do that. And that's not the roles we played for each other. So again, but at that time of my life, it was really, really painful. And so I really, I was starting to fill my own cup, but I really started to have to move into that feeling of self-compassion. So throughout, and that's, by the way, the fifth step is self-compassion. And this is an interesting one for me, the self-compassion. And I didn't really know what self-compassion meant. And past life regression work really helped me a lot. So like I mentioned, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. And I studied that also at the beginning of the pandemic, just because I wanted to learn about the mind. Turns out during the pandemic, I ended up working with hundreds of clients. So this is very logical, scientific work, clinical hypnotherapy, where you essentially do therapy while in a state of the subconscious mind. So I would guide a client into moving just above sleep where their body is calm, but their mind is actually super hyper focused. And there you're 95% of the subconscious, which is really holding on to all of your limiting beliefs and experiences. And what we learn in hypnotherapy is that there are really four or five main limiting beliefs. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I don't belong. I'm not lovable. And what I want is not available to me. It is the human experience. We all, to some degree, experience those self-limiting beliefs. And so I'm in a hypnotherapy school and I'm learning about the mind, and I'm seeing, where I developed, this belief that I'm not enough and why that made me hustle. I'm seeing where I developed the belief that I'm not worthy and how it made me want to prove to myself and overgive. I'm seeing where I made decisions about myself that said I'm not lovable or I don't belong. And it's always in hindsight, right? They say we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And for us as human beings, we come into this world of perfect expressed being, and between the ages of 2 and 8, as our ego starts to be developed, we start to receive these limiting beliefs. And so past life regression is a little bit more woo-woo than that. And people always say to me, what if I'm making it up? Honestly, I don't care if anybody is making it up. It's the same experience as a hypnotherapy session, but instead of examining work in this life, we actually allow the mind to go to another time, another place, and make up an entire life cycle with inflection points. And if you like, a death scene and see how you passed, with the potential recognition of other people that are currently in your life. So you're talking about experiences like karma and spirituality and the big life lessons that really we all learn in this earth school. So I'm not really concerned with proving that past life regression works. I know that I received it. At this point, I've given it hundreds of times. And again, we see the aha that shows up on the other side of it when we allow our mind to delve into the 95% of the subconscious and show us what it wants to show us. So I was playing at that time in my life, and I was going back again and again for past life regression work. I just wanted to see what the mind, I had uncovered so much in this life, but I wanted to see what some of those karmic links were all about. Even if they weren't true, I just wanted the mind to share it with me. And I had seen some really cool experiences and some things that I didn't even remember learning about history. And I started to get into some really crazy books, like if you have ever read Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss, or Dying to Be Me by Anita Morjani, phenomenal books about past life regression and near-death experiences. And I was just eating it up. And what was crazy about reading those books is that I started to see that there is actually a connection between what I was experiencing without even knowing that these doctors had been practicing this modality for a really long time. There was such a connection between what I was seeing and experiencing and what these other patients from other doctors had been seeing and experiencing. And that was blowing my mind. And in one of those experiences, I saw myself again. Dr. Park took me into a really deep experience, and I saw myself as actually a man and as a soldier. And I talk about this in detail in chapter Self-Compassion for Pathways to Self. And first of all, I had never seen myself as another, like as a non-female. And so that was really interesting. And I had never seen myself as someone who, quote unquote, was bad, someone I would consider myself as bad. And I won't go into the details of recounting that regression now. You can read about it in the book. But it did create such a deep compassion for that archetype of the soldier, because I was the soldier and I could see that that archetype was doing the best they could with the life that they were given, with the beliefs that they had, with the limiting beliefs that they had, and that they too were there in this earth school to learn some fascinating spiritual lessons. And it created such a deep self-compassion for the parts of me that I wished were just not there. And so this is classic parts work. If you've gotten into parts work, another great book is called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. If you are in this phase of life, I highly recommend reading that book as well, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. And I went deep into parts work, the reclamation of the parts of me that I wish were just not there, the part of me that is angry, the part of me that is impatient, the part of me that is a total bitch, the part of me that is selfish, and really reclaim all of those parts, because all the parts of us, even the parts we wish were just not there, believe they are doing something beneficial for us. And so self-compassion became the act of reclamation of all of me, all of the 88 keys of the piano, as one of my mentors says. And as I learned self-compassion for all the versions of me, I also learned forgiveness. And it's not just, forgiveness for others, it's forgiveness from myself for the decisions I made at times at the best of my capability. And, one of my favorite quotes about forgiveness is that forgiveness is a letting go of the idea that the past could have, should have gone any other way. That's really what forgiveness is all about. And so at that point of self-compassion and that step, I had to get really clear with myself that I'm doing the best I can and that's okay. And that is enough, which leads me into the next step, which is self-expression. And self-expression for me is an interesting one because I always thought self-expression was like a really, really loud thing, right? Where you speak the thing, you sing it, you paint it. But I really learned that expression could be so much deeper than that. And I saw it again and again. So I've been running retreats for 20 years. So I have a Canadian charitable foundation and we work internationally. I started that during my event production business. We traveled all over the world. We would fundraise in Canada and we would partner with international charities and we would travel there. We went to Kenya first, then we went to India and Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Haiti. And now I do a lot of that work here in Costa Rica where I live. But the human experience of going all over the world and working with children and specifically we were an arts-based organization. So our goal was to cultivate fertile soil so that creativity can flourish. And the thing we saw again and again when, we would build a school or we would create a community center, and then we would hire an art teacher and give, a kid a paintbrush. The first thing they did when they put the first stroke of paint on the page, the first thing they did and say was, look, or in Spanish, mira, and we'll do all the other languages. But they say, look, that is the child's experience. Look at my unique experience. Look at what I created. Look at who I am. It's Maslow's hierarchy, right? It starts with our basic needs and it moves up all the way to self-actualization, or as I refer to it as self-realization. And so we all have a desire to be seen, to be witnessed, but we have started to, during that very important period of between the ages of 2 and 8, we started to really believe that it wasn't safe to be fully expressed. I don't know about you guys, but I think everybody has this kind of experience. When I was a kid, I got a solo in a choir. I think I was like 10. and it was in front of the whole school, and I got up to do the solo, and my voice cracked. I was so nervous. It sucked. It was just horrendous. And the kids were laughing, and it was horrendous. I have never sung in public since then. I've done some karaoke now because I'm older and who cares, right? But it took me a really long time. You know, they say public speaking is like the number one fear in the world because we all have this desire to be expressed, to be seen, but we're also terrified of, what if they don't see me the way I want to be seen, right? What if they see my shadows? And so we start to edit ourselves. And I was definitely editing. I was editing my desires to the point that I didn't even know what I desired. I was I still am, and I'm a recovering people pleaser, right? So I was people pleasing. I was fawning, if you're into psychology terms. I still notice myself doing a lot of those things, and I'm constantly, reworking that and peeling that part of the onion. But self-expression is really about doing the thing, saying the thing anyway, but first understanding our own desires and what we actually want to express, what is authentic to who we are. And I think the biggest impact we can make on the world is to be fully unmistakably ourselves. And that is, we don't save that expression for when we've arrived and when we have the seat at the table. The purpose is to let it leak out in real time. And part of what really inspired my self-expression. So again, I was in this really deep, dark night of the soul, people dying, business changing, friends not being supportive. I'm noticing that I got there because I didn't say the thing that was authentic to me. And I went to study with the queen of self-expression, Mama Gina. And Mama Gina, if you've read the book Pussy, A Reclamation, I like quotes and I like books, so you can tell why I became an author myself. But I've had a lot of inspiration in my life, and Mama Gina was one of those inspiring forces. And she had something called the School of Womanly Arts, and it was 3 weekends in New York over a year. And it totally blew my mind yet again, because what was unique about that room is that I think the youngest person there was 18, the oldest was 88. There was 1,000 of us women, and the human experience of being a woman was present in all of us. We all felt not enough, unworthy, not lovable, like we didn't belong, and like what we wanted was not available to us. It was the human expression, and the human condition, and that stunted our expression. And so it was Mama Gina who taught me how to fully accept every key of the piano, all 88 keys. She was the one who really encouraged that in my life, and she encouraged thousands of people to do the same. And so, I think part of of really expressing ourselves is, again, going back to knowing ourselves and accepting ourselves and meeting ourselves with the deepest sense of self-compassion. Which moves me to the 7th step, and that's self-love. Oh, what a journey of self-love. I wonder if I have a picture here that I'm going to grab in a second and share with you guys. But self-love has been a journey because I think I thought self-love was about being perfect and loving ourselves because of the perfection of who we are. And to an extent, that's true. I said at the beginning, we come into this world a pure ball of light. Like, you imagine yourself. I'm going to grab this picture. Let me show you guys. I carry this here in my office and put it up to the screen. So this is a picture of me with my nonna. I'm under 1 year old here. And when I think about self-love, this is the picture I think about. And what I encourage everyone to do is to have a picture of you as a baby if you can. And not everybody has pictures of themselves, so that's okay. But any picture really of a baby. And I just want you to start exploring that perfection. They say that babies' faces look the way that they do, like so perfect, because it encourages that like deep bond and that connection. But so like, look at that perfect face, like your fingers, your toes. They cry when they want to. They sleep when they want to. They eat when they want to. They are unapologetically expressed and love themselves. And they think that anything is possible. They can be astronauts and physicists and famous rock stars. Anything is possible. And so the question becomes, when did that stop? When did we stop believing that things were possible for us? Part of self-love for me was about setting powerful boundaries. And it's something that I'm still learning. And I don't mean boundaries as walls. That's not what I mean by boundaries. Boundaries are really about, putting that own self-love first. Boundaries are about being selfish first. They're about knowing your own desires and needs and putting them first, not in spite of somebody else, but because you know that the best version of you, the best version of us will only move forward, what can only come into existence when we are full like that. And I had to learn the story of boundaries the hard way. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, the only people who have issues with your boundaries are the people you need them with in the first place. Well, that is absolutely my experience. In hypnosis, we do one of the exercises we do. So I practice rapid transformation therapy. And I studied with Marissa Peer and then got my clinical hypnotherapist certificate. And then I went into past life regression. Again, I'm a learner. And when the difference about that type of hypnosis is that we explore, we do a regression, meaning we explore past life events like you would in any therapy session. But then I bring in a whole bunch of tools that are based in neurolinguistics programming, meaning now we know when you made those decisions about yourself. We've uncovered the limiting beliefs. Now we're going to reprogram the whole thing. We're going to put the past in the past. We're going to, rearrange some things. We're going to infuse new beliefs into the subconscious mind. I am enough. I am worthy. I am perfect. I am whole, perfect, and complete. I am an expansion of love incarnated. I could go on and on and on. Self-love in those scenarios is about reconnecting with the younger version of you and giving that version of you everything that it wasn't given when they were just a baby. We do an exercise called Child in the Room, where we literally go back to the room we grew up in as a child, and we have a conversation with our youngest self. We hold them, we love them, we give them what they need. And it's intensely powerful. You can do it in your conscious mind. You can also do it by just allowing yourself to go into a meditative state and going in there and having a conversation with yourself. Obviously, it's a little easier with guidance. I've had a lot of guidance in my life, but you can do self-hypnosis, it's called, meaning allow yourself to go into a deep state of the subconscious. And right before you fall asleep, start going deeper into your mind and asking questions. But that was my journey with self-love, was first about, setting the boundaries I need to love myself and to give to myself first, but also a remembering. I don't know if you've heard the quote, it's not about becoming, it's about unbecoming everything you are not, because we are perfect, whole, and complete, always have been, always will be. The hard truth and the hard lesson I learned is that self-love is not found in validation or achievement. It is remembered. It's never missing. It's just really buried under everything we're doing. And part of the work I had to do was remembering that I am not a human doing, I am a human being. Which leads me to self-confidence, and that's the 8th step. And people tell me all the time that I come out, that I'm very confident, and that's partially true. I'm confident because time has shown me again and again that I'm going to land on my feet. So it's not because I did the thing and got the recognition and won the award or any of that. It's because I can trust myself, because I know I can do the disciplined habits, because I know I can make myself happy. I can give the love that I desire from the outer world. I can give that to myself because I trust my own expression and my own desire and my own needs. That's what creates confidence, because I said yes before I was ready and realized that on the other side, no matter how many hurdles, no matter how many failures or rejections, I will be okay. Again, it's not, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect it looking backwards. And confidence is built through reps, right? It's built through creating the muscle, not before the muscle is there. So you don't do it because you're confident. You do it and then you become confident. You don't need confidence to start the path. You just need to remember our own perfection. And that is what I try to do every single day is remember that perfection. And that is really what brings us to self-realization. So gosh, I'm in such a different part of life. Again, I've been living in Costa Rica now for almost 6 years. My life is very different. I play as much as I work, and I love work, so it says something. I now am an impact consultant, and I got to work with Sabrina and her foundation with so much joy. But what I do is I help athletes and families and what we call visionary organizations in creating their own philanthropic strategies. And I do philanthropic strategy, we do branding and marketing, and we do what we call amplification strategies. So again, that insight, that generosity, that we have a brain circuit dedicated to generosity that is present in all people. And so helping others, expand their own unique vision. It's, the days are gone when you're just seeing an old man writing a check in a boardroom, right? Like now impact and philanthropy is part of our DNA. And so I get to do that from my computer from here in Costa Rica. And something that I do talk about in the book is my new business here in Costa Rica, which is just, honestly, it's still blowing my mind. I can't believe it's happening. I always had a dream that one day I would have a beautiful space by the ocean that would look over the ocean, where I could host people in this coming home to oneself. And like a retreat center. And I actually had a fortune teller or a medium tell me once, like over a decade ago, that this was going to happen. And I thought she was crazy. I was like, I'm going to live on a beach in a jungle, and I'm going to have a house looking at the ocean. Like, okay, great. Love that dream for me, but like maybe one day. And soon after I moved here, my brother and his family followed me here again, pandemic styles. And they just moved back to North America for their kids. And we threw a big party for my brother's 50th birthday. They're going away, going away. And we had over 100 people there, and the sun was setting, and there was a band, and yes, overlooking the ocean. It was just all so glorious. Say hi to my cat, Luno. He arrived on an eclipse, so he's very much a jungle cat, as you can see by his insane size. Sorry, I digress. And we're at this party, and guest after guest came to us and said, I'd love to come for your space. How I would love to host a group here or come in this space. Yada, yada, yada. My brother, my cousin, my family, and we have launched Aura Costa Rica. It's a luxury retreat center here in Nosara, Costa Rica. And I literally just made the announcement last week. And it is, I've been running retreats now for well over a decade. I've run a few here in Costa Rica as well. I run an impact organization here as well. So I love incorporating impact into everything we do. But I believe in the power of, taking ourselves out of the day-to-day and, shifting things around so that we can see what else is available for us. So again, it's like that unbecoming sometimes requires that we take ourselves out of the space that we're currently in. And so, yeah, we're launching in November. It feels like it is my absolute purpose for now. I'm obviously very multi-passionate. I've spoken a lot about that, but it feels like it's my absolute purpose to host people in this glorious land, in this blue zone, a place where manifestation, like we say, careful what you think about here. That's how quick things happen in this vortex of energy in Costa Rica. And so that is what I'm doing now. And it is definitely my purpose now, for the next several years, I anticipate. And that is what my book is about. And so, gosh, the book comes out on Tuesday. I'm thinking about what I can leave you with as I wrap this up. The book comes out on Tuesday, August 18th, Pathways to Self, the Path to Purpose through the 9 Steps of Self-Realization. And my hope is that you don't follow my path, that you really get closer to what your unique path is in this world. There is no highlight reel. We can only feel our happiness to the degree in which we can feel our pain. We can only feel love to the degree in which we've understood separation. That is the human experience. That is what this earth school is about. So purpose, it's not a destination, but it's a practice, a consistent practice of coming back to self, of unbecoming what we're not, peeling another layer of the onion. And so that is what my hope is for all of us. And that's actually, if I would think about what my hope is for the book, is that it connects us a little bit deeper. My hope is that you read that book and you see yourself in the stories, that you see how where you've, created trust or have space to create trust, where there is more space to create more authentic expression, where we can love ourselves a little bit deeper. So this is my ask for you guys. Tuesday, my book comes out. And I would love, love, love. It's my birthday on Friday. So my birthday gift, if you will, is to buy that book, but not only buy it, but to read it, connect to it, be in touch about it. I want to hear if it's connecting, not because I want to hear that it's good or not good, even though I love that, but I'm a Leo after all. But really, I would love for it to be a connection deeper to yourself, therefore a connection deeper to all of us. That is what I want, for all of us to come together in that connection. I will also be, for anyone who buys on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing a draw. So you can send proof of purchase to my Instagram at Dana Shalit, or pathways to self-book at gmail.com. And you'll be entered in a draw to win a retreat with me here in beautiful Nosara, Costa Rica. So that is my gift on Tuesday. And that's my last ask, is if you want to and desire to, come visit me. Come visit Aura, Costa Rica. Come on retreat. I know Sabrina and I have been wanting to host a retreat a lot as well, so that's on our mind. And yeah, and I just wish you a beautiful, glorious day, a remembering of who you really are. And if you are in the dark night of the soul, from someone who's on the other side of it, I'm gonna tell you that this too shall pass, and all the lessons that we learn become the blocks for our remembering later on. So yeah, I love you guys. Sabrina, Arden, thank you so much. I love the connection you're creating amongst community. I'm beyond grateful. And I'm just really excited for all that's to come. Really, really, really. So thank you. And have a wonderful day, everybody. And come visit me in Costa Rica.